So I want you to picture this scene. If I can get it to you.
Okay, right.
Not just this scene. The next scene.
Okay, give me just a second. Let me
Sure. Go
let
ahead.
me get on the right.
Is that in Wyoming?
I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. So, other way. Oh, maybe I'm going the wrong way. There we go. All right, now I want you to picture this scene. It's a cold evening
Oh, okay.
in February, but February 1923. A county sheriff and a prosecuting attorney arrive at a location where they have been summoned by what they are told are the best citizens of the community. So they dare not ignore the summons. They enter the building only to discover that their only exit has been blocked by a small group of silent, hooded and robed figures, barely distinguishable in the dim light. Two men are taken into an inner room, and there they see more similarly garbed men near a large American flag. From seemingly nowhere, more of these figures, silent, appear out of the shadows. A commanding voice fills the room. There have been many things come to our attention through Klansmen's eyes and Klansmen's ears that we do not approve of. You were elected to the offices that you now hold by the people of this community to uphold and enforce the laws, both national and state. Behold our glorious American flag. We as Klansmen have taken a solemn oath to uphold it and its constitution and laws. If you will but keep the oath of your office and enforce those laws, we assure you our most hearty support and cooperation.
Just a second.
Okay. Is it wrong? Am I doing it the wrong way?
Leslie, hold on just a second.
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
get you on the right screen. Dueling mice. Lost my cursor, sorry.
Okay.
Tech just isn't with us today here.
How about if I just say to you, turn slide or something like that? That might be easy. So that's the slide before. Okay, here's the next slide. So the voice continues. Will you, he said, as officers of the law, promise in the presence of these silent men assembled to do this? In the heavy silence, the two men respond, we will. The voice continues. Then we assure you that we will stand by you in our unknown ways, not by tens and twenties, but by hundreds and thousands, if need be. And finally, the voice says to the two men, you may now depart in peace, but we warn you that Klansmen's eyes and Klansmen's ears are upon you and every county and city official, silent and unknown. So this wasn't a scene out of a novel or a movie. This happened in Evanston, Wyoming in February of 1923. And it wasn't an isolated incident with the Klan in Wyoming. So before tonight and before you saw me, how many of you knew that there was a second Ku Klux Klan in Wyoming? Oh, wow. Well, Carl. Yes, you did. That many of you knew. So you knew that not only there was a second KKK, but there was one here in Wyoming.
Yeah, from Lusk.
I'll be talking to all of you because as I do this talk, I'm still doing my research. And so if you have information, I would love to hear about what you know. But let me ask you another question. When you think about the Ku Klux Klan, what area of the country do you typically associate it with? So you typically think about it in here, right? Maybe going through Texas, Oklahoma, but you don't typically think about it in Oregon or Washington or California. Well, that's what makes this story surprising. This is a little bit fuzzy, but this is a project done by Virginia Commonwealth University about 10 years ago. And what they did was map out the Klan across the United States and also a little bit into Canada. So what you see here is, yes, you see quite a bit happening in the South, but you also see a big concentration in the Northeast. You see Wyoming, but I'll tell you, this is very underestimated of the presence of the KKK in Wyoming. What this map doesn't show is also Oregon and Washington. Those were real hotbeds of the Klan. So it really was very much a widespread phenomenon. So Columbus, Ohio, Muncie, Indiana. Indiana was a big stronghold. And then they made a point of Washington, D.C. with the Capitol behind them, making a real statement. And they also had a very strong influence in Colorado, much stronger actually than here in Wyoming. It was Colorado was probably one of the strongest, besides Washington, Oregon, and Indiana was Colorado. And they were especially Denver and Pueblo were very big. And I just couldn't pass up this photo. Whoops. In Colorado. I guess they took over the park and took over the Ferris wheel. But I wasn't going to show this, but I saw it. I'm like, I can't. No, I'll show that.
Oh my God.
So as for Wyoming, now this is in Casper. By 1923, a national Ku Klux Klan paper could claim that, quote, in Wyoming, a Klan in every town of more than 1,000 population and some in the smaller towns. So this is the second Klan. How did this get so wide? We think of the first Ku Klux Klan, the Reconstruction Klan, is very much a Southern phenomenon. And it was, because it was fighting something different than, or thought it was, than the second Klan. And I'll talk more about that. So to tell you, how did this start? Have you heard of the movie called The Birth of a Nation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know, what do you know about it?
Very racist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Big
Very
time.
racist.
Yeah, that's where this came from,
Aha.
because it got popular. It was like sort of the thing.
It was the thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it
Because they were
certainly
such
was.
heroes in this.
Yes. And so this film, it was actually based on a trilogy of novels from around 1905, that period. But those novels about the Ku Klux Klan were turned into this film called The Birth of a Nation. The thing about this film was it was a technological sensation. My husband and I tried to watch it last night. It's 3 hours long. We made it through about an hour and a half. It is, but for its time period, it had close-ups and it had these action scenes that had never been seen before. It was very popular. But it also had a very distorted view of history. So in this film, as in the books, the Klan were shown as these chivalrous figures who were fighting to keep the South. They were fighting against Black empowerment and Northern influence, and seen very much as the saviors and the heroes of the South. So this preacher, William J. Simmons, he had long been thinking about a fraternal organization based on the Klan, on the Reconstruction era Klan. He was an avid fraternalist. This guy belonged to everything you could belong to. Masons, Oddfellows. He just very much believed in fraternal organizations, but he wanted one that had all the imagery and the drama of what he had seen in the birth of the nation. He wanted to build his new Klan on all that imagery and with burning crosses and the robed and hooded figures and all these mysterious ceremonies. When you think about fraternal organizations, they did have a lot of ceremony and a lot of this, but he wanted to take it even further with drama. So when the film came out in 1915, he saw his chance. So he timed the revival of his second Klan, his reconstructed Klan, for lack of a better word, for their premiere of Birth of the Nation in Atlanta. And he had a ceremony that brought in many of the people that he knew, including someone who founded the original Klan, and to create this, what we now call the second Klan. It took a while to take off, so that was 1915, but by 1921, his timing was perfect for this reconstructed Klan. And I'll tell you more about what the second Klan was about, but at this time, there was a lot of changes happening in the United States. You think about the 1920s, post-World War I. You know, immigrants had been arriving for quite a while in 1920s continuing. But what you also had was skirts were getting shorter. And we had prohibition starting in 1920, but that didn't stop speakeasies. And that didn't stop vice districts. And so the Klan put themselves forward as something that could protect those values that Americans held so dear, especially in rural areas. It was conservative back then in rural areas, just like it is today. So this new Klan was different than its Reconstruction era predecessor. Now, it still had this basis of white supremacy. That was definitely still the case. But this Klan broadened its targets dramatically. So you think about what it was trying to image. It was trying to say, immigrants, they're not American. Anyone who's not Protestant, this is a Protestant nation, they're not American. They have this thing of 100% Americans. White, Protestant, native born, and with a nationalistic fervor. So under this banner of 100% Americanism, they targeted immigrants, they targeted Jews, they targeted bootleggers because they were for law and order and traditional values. But their most intense focus was on Roman Catholics. They claimed that Roman Catholics were creating a parallel society. They were forming their own schools, hospitals, political organizations that were running parallel to the American government. And unlike Protestants, Roman Catholics had their allegiance to Rome, not to the United States. Therefore, they can't be 100% Americans. So the Klan saw itself, it was a fraternal organization that very much focused on family values and morality. And I'll just mention with these kids here, there was also a Ku Klux Kitties.
Oh,
So your child could have its own chapter. We're talking about Twisted Boy Scouts here. But yeah, there was Ku Klux Kitties in many of these places that had a Klan chapter. So what the Klan really tried to show itself as was this patriotic organization. There were definitely, anti-Catholic and anti-immigrant, but they were trying to show we're 100% Americans. And after World War I, that was big. In fact, during World War I, 100% Americanism was big. And they co-opted it into the second Klan and added their own flavors to it. So with this patriotic organization that they were creating, they were able to attract figures in the community that probably wouldn't have joined the Reconstruction era Klan with very much a forward of hate. But a patriotic organization, well, that's different. That's more acceptable. So they got doctors and attorneys and judges and politicians to join. So this transformation of the Klan into a more mainstream organization than it was in the Reconstruction era played out here in Wyoming. So starting in 1921, when the Klan was really starting to take off, the national organization, which was based in Atlanta, began sending out recruiters, sent them out all over the country. And these recruiters were called Kleagles. Everything was a K. KK Kitties, Kleagles. The chapters were Claverns. It was all Ks. And they were deliberately targeting the more prominent citizens in a community because they thought, well, if we can get these prominent citizens to be members, that will encourage others to think, oh, this is a good organization to join. I'll join. And that strategy worked really well. So I want to tell you a story about an example story of how the Klan operated in Wyoming communities and other communities. So in Casper, there was a man named Bob David. He was a very well-respected member of the community. And he experienced persistent recruitment attempts. And the Klan were interested in him because he was just the type of person they wanted in their organization. He was respected, an influential businessman. He was a Mason, and the Klan really targeted Masons. And he was a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. So he was already fraternal, but also well respected. And every day on his walk home from work, Bob David, they would follow him and they would talk to him and try to talk him into joining the Klan. And he resisted. And his resistance only seemed to make them more determined to have him become a part of the Casper Klan. And he said in a memoir later that one evening his neighbor, who was a local Klan leader, held up a whistle and said, if I blow this whistle one time, 50 members will come to my calling. And Bob wrote, I believed him because Klansmen were everywhere in Casper. But the story doesn't end there. So his butcher, local butcher, finally talked him into attending a Klan meeting because there was a national speaker. So Bob got a friend and they went to the Oddfellows Hall to hear the speaker. So they get there, and right away, once they got in, the doors were locked behind them. So they're locked in. The county deputy is the one who locks them in. This is a Klan meeting. And they're led to the front, and then unmasked Klan members sat behind them. The speaker began using this national speaker began using racist language, and Bob was like, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. He walks out and his way is blocked. He can't get out. The county deputy won't let him out. So he and his friend go back to their seat. They realize they're outnumbered. What are they gonna do? They can't get out. So it wasn't until the head of the Casper Klan, and I'll talk more about him, Dr. L.D. Johnson, talked about the virtues of the Klan, and finished the presentation, were they able to leave? But even then, their way was still blocked, and they had to force themselves. They basically forced the deputy aside and got out. So what Bob David's story shows is several things. One is this persistence at recruiting prominent people in the community. They didn't want to give up on Bob David. Their infiltration of law enforcement was a county deputy who was blocking them from leaving. And also these intimidation tactics that they had with potential recruits, it's showing their power and their presence. But Bob David never did join. And even though he was pressured, he never did join. And it showed the resistance that someone can have to an organization like that is gaining a lot of power in their community, but refuses to go along with it. In communities like Casper, people had to make choices. Some men joined because it was good business sense. If you have a lot of prominent members, you might join because you want to network with them. So there were all types of reasons that people joined, but not everybody, people like Bob David were against this, because in Casper, at least, it was starting to infiltrate the government. And I'll talk more about that. And I'll talk more about tolerance, the newspaper. So now I'm curious, how many of you have family who lived in Wyoming in the 1920s? Quite a few of you do. Your family probably has memories of this happening in your communities, even if they don't realize it. They probably did see crosses burning on hillsides. They probably, or they may have seen an invitation come to them. This is an invitation from a man in Newcastle to come to a Klan meeting, a personalized invitation to this man to come to a Klan meeting. So they may have received an invitation to join. Or they may have seen Klan parades going through the street, because those were very common as they tried to show their power. So I'm going to take you on a little tour. Sorry, I'm so dry. I'm going to take you on a little Wyoming tour of the Klan in Wyoming, and I'm going to show you some examples of Klan in different communities, but by no means is this all. This is just a sample. Otherwise, I'd have you here till like 11 o'clock at night if I try to tell you all of the examples. But let's start in Wyoming. Let's start in Sheridan. So in Sheridan, the Ku Klux Klan was threatening the Palace Candy Company, which had rooms upstairs for boarders. And they were saying that this owner of the Palace Candy Company was renting to an alleged gambler, and they better get him out of there or else. Signed, the KKK. So law and order, they're going to take care of business. Now, this letter, the Sheridan Klan then disavowed that they had sent it. But what I thought, and I know this is hard to see, but what I thought was interesting is in this article, the newspaper editor said, it might be of interest to know that we have 500 members in Sheridan. We're talking 1922. Sheridan's still a relatively small town and 500 members. That's a lot for a small town. This one I found really interesting. And Carl, this one I have to thank you for. I have a lot to thank Carl for on telling me some of these things. In Warland, there was a prominent businessman who owned a lumber company. His name is Frank Coulter. And he wrote a very revealing letter that's here in the state archives to this man, Frank Emerson. Now, at this time, Frank Emerson was the Wyoming State Engineer, but he was also running for Wyoming Governor. Why did Coulter write to Emerson? Because Emerson was on the board of Coulter's lumber company. He had a stake in Coulter's lumber company. What Coulter said to Emerson is, I have something I got to tell you that happened. Our local Klan was going to have a big outdoor ceremony, and we got rained out. So we had to go indoors. Well, I opened up my lumber company, and that's where we had our meeting. Well, people in the community got wind of this. And so what they did is they parked their cars outside the building exit and had their lights shining on it. That way they could see who was exiting the building when the meeting was over. Coulter didn't care. Coulter didn't care if they saw him, but some of his fellow Klansmen did care and did not want to be seen. So in this letter, Coulter says he was scooting them out the back door so that people could hide their identities. So because Emerson was running his gubernatorial campaign, Frank Coulter thought, oh, I better let him know in case somebody says something because he's on the board of my company. But what I find interesting with Emerson is looking at his papers, and we have some of his papers at the AHC, I get the feeling he was also a Klan member, just based on some things that I saw in his papers. It doesn't surprise me, though. There were a number of prominent politicians who were members. So I wasn't surprised to see that about him. Wheatland, despite the local newspaper's strong protest, no, we do not want a Klan here. They have a Klan. And they had a Klan into the late 1920s, which by second Klan timeline is actually pretty late, and I'll tell you more about that. But in September 1927, they had a monster parade. And although I wish I had a picture of that particular parade, this is from South Dakota and kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like, these Klan figures marching down the street. And you've probably noticed by now that they're all, every Klansman you see is like wearing the same thing. In the Reconstruction era Klan, they all made their own homespun costumes. Second Klan was much more money-making deal. So they sold the Klansmen these robes and hoods and made a lot of money doing it. But whenever you see the second Klan, you'll see that they're all dressed the same way with the same symbol on them. Torrington had quite a presence of a Klan. And in this case, the United Methodist Church, it was in 1926, Klan members, about maybe 5 of them, interrupted a church service, walked down silently to the altar, laid a donation there, didn't say anything, and walked back out again. And that ploy of going into churches and depositing some money in the altar was a very popular ploy in Wyoming, but also nationwide. So what they're trying to do is show themselves as these community benefactors for the church, but also this mysterious coming in with their full regalia and silently, not saying a word, is this power and presence that they were trying to give off. It was a recruitment technique. It was also very successful. Well, in this Torrington one, some sharp-eyed parishioners noticed that there were some women's feet under those costumes. And there was actually a women's group within the larger Klan. So there were quite a few women involved. Another thing in Torrington, the Klan relied on traveling speakers who had paid, and they would travel all over the country, salesmen for the Klan. Torrington had one of these speakers in 1926, a Baptist minister named Lester Brown. And as you can see, Americanism, patriotism, law and order, mainstays of the Klan. And hundreds of people would come to these events, and hundreds of people in Torrington came to this event. What I found interesting about this particular event, well, first of all, the newspaper reporter who covered it said, "You would never be so fascinated by the human foot unless you went to a KKK parade." That's all you can see is a human's foot. But the other thing he did, which I thought was interesting, was, they put on these the KKK put on these big spectacles, food, talks, and burning crosses. And so people would come who were not interested in becoming a member of the Klan, but hey, it's Torrington. What are you going to do on the night? So they would go and see these things. And, but what I found interesting is that, so the newspaper reporter talked to some of these people who weren't Klan members and said, "Hey, why are you here?" And they said, "Well, it's spread." And they said, also, the patriotic talk, there's no harm in it. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is, even if you're not a member, you're still hearing this, and the ideology is still sinking in, even if you're not fully committed. And even some people who weren't Klan members, it doesn't mean they didn't identify with the ideology. They weren't just formally in the Klan. Keep writing like red things on here. Nearby in Lingle, hey, come join the Klan. Here, look, you can sign this up and you can be a member. I mean, they weren't hiding it in Lingle. If you want to become a Klan member, this was from the Lingle Review. Fill this out and send it in. And so that's openly in the newspaper. So there was some secretive things about the second Klan, but there was a lot of advertising of this type as well. Interesting too in Lingle, one of these lecturers, her name was Mary Steep, but she went by Sister Mary Ethel. Her story was that she had, as a young person, had been kidnapped and taken to a convent, held against her will. And she would actually bring physical objects, like chains that were used to torture her. And what this is part of is, remember, anti-Catholic. So she would go around the country, because I saw her in all parts of the country from newspapers, and she would talk about the horrors of the Catholic Church. So just inflaming this antagonism towards the Catholic Church. And this was another well-attended talk, according to what I read about this particular event. Thermopolis had a Klan, and they were also quite open about it. Hey, we've got a Klan here. It's high time. The public should know we have a Klan. Now, to be a member, you had to be male, native-born, white, and of clean reputation. So again, if you're not native-born and you're not male and white, you're not joining the Klan. But again, very open about it. Grable has a really interesting story, and I'll tell you a little bit, but there's a very good wildhistory.org article by Kylie McCormick that talks more fully about the Grable story. When the Klan arrived there in 1923, it split the community. Prominent citizens were joining, but not everyone was happy about the Klan presence, including this woman who was a local bookstore owner. She ran for mayor of Grable, and she won in 1924. And her slogan was, "It can be done." Well, what could be done was getting the Klan out of the community. So there were enough people who were tired of this intimidating Klan presence in their community that they voted for her, and she became mayor. Now, I couldn't tell how much she actually got rid of the Klan, but she's definitely had a way. I mean, she looks a little tough to me. I wouldn't want to cross her, but when Klansmen said, well, we're going to wear our masks to the meeting, the council meeting. And she said, wear masks and take what falls on you. And they didn't show up. No Klansmen showed up. So she must have been a pretty tough woman. But again, I recommend that article by Kylie McCormick at wildhistory.org for the full story. Cody. Now in Cody, this was a situation that I hadn't seen anywhere else, where the Klan decided that they wanted all the school kids to read the Bible in their classroom. And so they went to the different churches in Cody and got them on board with this idea. And then they took this idea, this proposal, to the Cody Club, which was very influential in town, and said, hey, we've got this proposal. We want you to get behind it. Well, instead, what they did was they just quietly tabled it. They just never got around to addressing it. I don't know how they got away with it, but they just did not address it. And so what I found interesting about that is quiet resistance. They just tabled it. They didn't actually come out, but they just did not address it. I'm not making a red mark. So that's a good. So even at Fort Laramie, historic site, there was a local Klan around that area. And this is just a kind of a pre-event photo that actually I found at the Fort Laramie Historic Site. But this one, I just show you. So at this one, big event, going around the crosses, and in this case, it doesn't show it, but signs saying white supremacy and America for Americans, and they're parading around and making a real display for onlookers. So let's turn to Cheyenne. So before the Klan even arrives in Cheyenne, there was panic. Is it coming to our community? The reason why, when you look through the newspapers in the 1918s, 1919s, in the newspapers in Wyoming, you start seeing news of, oh, the Klan's revived. Oh, it's come to Indiana. Oh, it's come to Colorado. Oh, it's come here. It's come there. And so these newspaper editors are like, oh, it might come here. It might be on its way here. And so this is 1919. And apparently this group of self-formed vigilante group decided that they were going to form to fight auto thieves. And so if you stole a car, they were going to do something to you. I don't know. Drive you off a cliff, maybe. I'm not sure. But automatically, the newspaper said, the Klan is with us. The Ku Klux Klan is with us. It wasn't the Klan, but the fact it was vigilante and this, they thought it must be the Klan. So there was this panic about the Klan. And thanks to Carl, this is from the papers here at the State Archives. So this vigilante theme surfaces again in October 1921. This is the Cheyenne Young Men's Literary Club. And one of the members, there was going to be a railroad strike. And this member says, well, a KKK, we need to have them come and raid the strikers' homes take out their flour and sugar. Maybe he was joking. And a year later, you still, in these minutes, you still see them talking about the Klan, and they're talking about, yeah, someone was trying to recruit me. Yeah, some of my acquaintances are Klan members, and they're very open about it. So by 1922, for sure, the Klan was in Cheyenne. And right here, you can see just this growth within 2 years. The Klan is organizing here. To this article from a Klan newspaper called The Fiery Cross. And what it's saying, this terrific downpour of rain did not stop a large initiation ceremony outside Cheyenne by the invisible empire. And it was so big, and there were so many curious onlookers that they had to get a patrol corps to keep onlookers away from the meeting, because people were fascinated by the spectacle of this. Hopefully you can read that pretty good. Now this, coming back for a moment to the women's involvement in KKK, definitely, I saw something in Wheatland, but Cheyenne definitely had a KKK chapter, a women's chapter. So you can see why native-born Protestant women, if you fit the bill and you wanted to join the women of the Ku Klux Klan, you would communicate with Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth Johnson was actually from Greeley. And I think why Cheyenne had such a strong presence is because Colorado had such a strong presence, especially in Denver. And so it was really easy to come up to Cheyenne to recruit. And so I think that's what was happening. This is what got me started on this KKK, by the way. In the Nellie Taylor Ross papers is a sympathy card that the women of the Cheyenne women of the Ku Klux Klan sent to Nellie Taylor Ross when her husband died, Governor William B. Ross. And he died 1924. So this card is from 1924, and this is in Nellie Taylor Ross's papers at the AEC. So Casper, and this is where I'll end our tour. Casper was the stronghold of the Ku Klux Klan in Wyoming. And this, Rick, I think you found this article. There is so much fascinating about this, not article, but ad. There's this ad. It's just fascinating to me. First of all, the date, 1919. 1919. So we're talking about 2 years before the Klan was openly recruiting in Wyoming. But what I love about it is one of the first things done by members of the KKK is to go get cool, airy underwear. So this man who owned this store, Elgin, he had owned the store since like 1903. So when you're talking about someone who's prominent in the community, that's him. Well, not him, but the store owner was very prominent in the community and obviously had joined the Klan. And they're very open about it. Naturally, since we are the official outfitters of the KKK, we have the special things they want for the days of summer, including underwear. What I find interesting about this particular ad, again, the date, 1919, but this was a code that you would see in advertisements that they were seeking Klan members to come in. You notice KKK, clean clothes, clean, with K's, commercial dry cleaners. And so you'd see that in ads saying, hey, Klan members, we want your business. Now, I said 1919, and I said I was going to come back to L.D. Johnson. Well, one of the reasons that I think Casper had an early Klan was this man, Dr. L.D. Johnson. He is so interesting that when I did my article on in Annals of Wyoming on the Wyoming KKK, I did a separate article just on this man, and I'm still trying to learn about him. This man was a prominent physician in Chicago. He was a teacher, a professor, teaching medical various things about medicine at a college in Chicago. And I saw, looking at Chicago newspapers, he's mentioned in a lot of different places. This was not your average physician. So he comes to Casper around 1919. I still haven't figured out why he came there. And he didn't actually incorporate his clinic until 1921. But in 1919 is when we start seeing activity happening in Casper. Now, Chicago was a huge stronghold of the Klan. Was he sent to Casper, Wyoming? I don't know, but it's just, to me, it's just more than a coincidence that upon his arrival, the Klan starts up. And so he soon became the state leader of the Klan in Wyoming, and that position was called the Grand Dragon. Believe it or not, there wasn't a K in there. And so by 1921, the Casper Daily Tribune said there were 200 members. I would bet there were more. The highest and the best citizenship. And one reason I think that the Klan became so big in Casper, because remember, those of you who know your Casper history, what was happening in Casper around this time?
Oil.
right? It was a huge oil boom. Guess what happens when you have a big oil boom?
We get an influx of people.
You get an influx of a lot of young men looking for fun. And they don't necessarily have family members with them. So they had the Sandbar district. Yeah, you just say Sandbar. You just say Sandbar. Yeah, you know your Casper history. And what do you know about the Sandbar district?
It was a lot of prostitution and a lot of booze.
A lot of booze. Yeah.
And, a couple of knocks on the door and the right amount of money, and we're in.
And it was still prohibition, but hey,
Yeah.
what is that? That doesn't matter. A lot of gambling. And so the Klan, law and order, we're not going to have that in our community. So I'll just. So the Casper, I know this is a little hard to read, but the Casper Klan, all of a sudden, 2 roadhouses just burned to the ground. Wonder what could have happened there. Interesting. And it was people in the community thought, well, Ku Klux Klan. So there was very much a vigilante thing happening with the Casper Klan. Well, another thing that I found out is, I thought this was a fun story, really. The Klan, this is a Catholic church in Casper, and the Klan did a protest parade around this church. Well, Father Mullen came out, and he wasn't going to have that, and he pulled the hood off one of those guys, and it was a local businessman.
Oops.
I don't know the guy's name. I'd love to know. If any of you know, I'd like to know who it was. But a feisty Catholic priest came and confronted him. So the Klan's infiltration into Casper was more significant, at least on the outside, to me, and what I've seen in newspaper reports than it was anywhere else. And an example was this man, Errol Cantlin. He shot a woman, fatally shot her. And it was a traffic stop. And he shot this woman. Well, the county prosecutor, who was a Klan member, did not want to issue an arrest warrant. The sheriff neglected to investigate. And when this man, Cantlin, was finally acquitted, a local newspaper said the slimy hand of the Ku Klux Klan, they were convicted of criminal libel. They actually served jail time for libel. So to me, that just shows the infiltration in Casper that existed. And yeah, under Dr. Johnson, the Casper Klan infiltrated law enforcement, infiltrated politics, DFW, Masons, Oddfellows. They infiltrated many, many layers in Casper. And I said I was going to come back to Tolerance. So Tolerance was a newspaper published by a Roman Catholic group that was fighting the Klan on a national basis. It's called the American Unity League, was the group. Tolerance, what would happen is they had operatives go into different communities and act like they wanted to be members of a local Klan. And they would get their hands on the rosters. And so if you look at issues of tolerance, you'll see who's who in hoods. And you will see names. You will see places and names of members. I found that in Casper. So in 1924, Tolerance, by the invitation of the Catholic group in Casper, someone from Tolerance came, infiltrated, and got the list. and started publishing those names of Casper Klan members. But what I found so fascinating is this list. They also published this list. This list is the leadership of the state of Wyoming for the Klan. And when I looked at this list, well, I was talking to my husband, Robert, and he's from Green River, which is somewhere in here, and A.C. Peters, very prominent person who's probably a friend of your great grandfather. But what's that?
They were both in the Masons.
They were both in the Masons. There's some prominent people listed here. And some of the names aren't spelled correctly, but my guess is that's not Catchell in Buffalo. My guess is that might be Gatchell. The Exalted Cyclops is a local leader. Yeah. So this was published in Tolerance, August 24th, 1924. I just like that. I thought that was just amazing. So when they did this, so when they published these names, that was one way that they got the Klan to heal. Because now their names are out there. Some didn't care, but some very much did care. And they did not want their names out there. So that started to decrease some of the membership, not necessarily in Wyoming, because it lasted through the 1920s, but it certainly put a damper on things. It put a damper on things in Casper, because some of those people that were identified were local politicians, and they did not win their races in 1924. But some other factors caused the decline of the Klan on a national basis. And one, this man, D.C. Stevenson, he was the Grand Dragon in Indiana, and he was convicted of sexual assault and murder of a woman. Well, this is the Klan morality, law, and order, and your leader gets convicted of sexual assault, and murder. So when that was all over the Wyoming newspapers too. So people knew about that all over the country. And just elsewhere in the nation, the Klan was kind of getting too big for its britches. And they were trying to push themselves into national politics. And finally, people were, politicians, others were getting a better idea of bigotry, terrorism, and they had had enough. And so you see a resistance to the Klan starting to really grow. So I'm just going to end here. But I want to say, so while the second Klan did fade, and pretty much by the Depression, the start of the Great Depression in 1929, it had largely gone by the wayside, but I will argue that it still, what the Klan represents, has not disappeared. It does raise up. It raises up. It's always there percolating and coming up in new forms and reminding us of why history like this matters and to remember it. Thank you. Sorry, I went too long.
No, it's excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions? Do you think there is any Klan currently here? I know that there are some.
So you're asking if there's a current Klan in Wyoming? Most likely. I don't know for sure, though. I don't know. I haven't looked into current iterations of it, but I think there's still an undercurrent of Klan everywhere. So I wish I could answer that question decisively, but my guess is yes. Rick, did you have a question?
Yeah, Leslie, you mentioned a few people who were in important positions, prosecutors, sheriffs, things like that. Did they have any political influence in Wyoming? Did they try and get laws passed in certain ways?
In Casper, most definitely. And I could have, one way this talk could have gone is Casper, just focusing it on Casper. Definitely there was an influence there. But again, I feel like I'm in the middle of this research. I am not at the end of this research. Because in Cheyenne, there was a huge presence. But I'm trying to figure out to what level. It's buried, like when I looked at Frank Emerson's papers and what Carl told me is there, but you just got to dig for it. So definitely in Casper, but I don't know about other areas. I'm thinking there must be, even if it was very quiet. Wheatland had such a huge presence. Torrington, Laramie, Cheyenne. So there must have been, but how it totally manifested, I'm not sure. Jack?
Wasn't the Emerson, of course, the Emerson building over here is named for him, State Office Building. Wasn't he the one who defeated Nellie Taylor Ross when she ran for re-election?
Isn't that ironic? Yeah. So Jack's saying, wasn't Frank Emerson the one who beat Nellie Taylor Ross? Yes, in 1926.
She just served the last 2 years of her husband's term.
That's right. And then he was the next governor. I think he died in 1931.
In office.
In office, yes.
With the thought in mind that we often have short memories, why was there such a big pushback against the growing influence of the Klan the second time around?
Why was there such a pushback against this Klan?
Yes.
There were the groups that were being targeted, especially Catholics, and they formed this newspaper. They went all out trying to fight this Klan because the Klan was trying to influence politicians, community members against them. And so they definitely resisted. And there was some intimidation on their part against people, and worse in other areas than it was here. I mean, there were still lynchings happening from the Klan. There was violence happening from the Klan, and there was resistance to that.
So the memory was still pretty strong about what they had done in the past then as well.
As far as, well, certainly people did not forget the first Klan and that, and then you have the second Klan. Is that what you mean? Or?
Yeah, I was just wondering how did they keep the memory alive enough to really get the resistance going?
And when you say they, how do you mean?
The people who created the Tolerance magazine, the people who infiltrated the group.
Mm-hmm. How did they? Well, when you think about it, the Klan in some areas was very, very influential, more so than in Wyoming. So when you're talking about a virulently anti-Catholic Klan, and Catholics nationwide we're not going to put up with this. And so there was, I'm not sure if that's where you're going, and, against immigrants. And so, I guess it was fresh because it was right in their face. I'm not sure if that totally answers what you mean. See, we got two. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did the Klan come out of the Know Nothing Party before the Civil War?
That there are so many iterations. When I say there are new forms,
Yeah.
so you think about the Know Nothings, and then during the First War, then you think about the American Protective Association, also against Catholics. Then you think about 100% Americans during World War I, and then you see this, and then you see, so it pops up in different forms. Same kind of sentiments happening where anti-somebody,
Right.
your other.
John Birch Society.
John Birch Society. So you see, someone's going to get othered. There's some familiar people who get othered, but then it can change too.
There's a really good, I've just read a really good book called Fever in the Heartland.
Yes.
that talks about this era of the Klan. It's focused on Stevenson
Yeah.
a lot, but that's a really good read. It doesn't, I knew about it talks about Oregon and Colorado and mostly the Midwest.
Sure.
But it talks about the rise and then the fall of the Klan. And I didn't realize that there was this president in Wyoming. I kept talking to my cousin. I'm from Western Nebraska originally and of Irish Catholic descent. And we were talking, my grandparents were talking, and this would have been in the 20s. And they talked about the Klan in Western Nebraska.
It was big in that area too. And what I found interesting is that Wyoming, you know how we go cross border for different things now? We did that for clans too. We would go to Nebraska to participate in Nebraska, and then in Sheridan they go up to Billings. So some Wyoming people might have been in Western Nebraska at some of these rallies. Fever in the Heartland is the book that he was talking about, and it is a very good book to read about this. Susie and then Robert.
So did you get a sense that most of the kind of actions of the Klan in Wyoming were more against the Roman Catholics, or was there still a lot of actions against minority communities?
Yeah, and the one thing, and I should have mentioned this about the Klan. So the Klan personalized itself because it had so many things that it was against. So in Casper, for example, law and order. In Lingle, Torrington, where there was a lot of Roman Catholics coming in, migrants coming in, farm workers were anti-Catholic. So they were virulently anti whatever was in that community that they felt was not 100% American. And then they would fight that, or wasn't law and order, and they would fight that.
Like the Nazis.
We're going to fight. Well, I guess it's the same spectrum,
Yeah.
Robert.
Yeah, Leslie touched on her papers in Annals of Wyoming. If you haven't yet seen those or read those, they're really interesting. So.
That's why I brought Robert, my husband. Thank you, Robert. I know I kept you late. I so appreciate you staying late. Thank you, everyone. Oh, and they probably have questions too.
Yeah, we got one question.
Okay.
What kind of activities did the Klan Children's conduct? Was it like a Sunday school or 4-H? She said kind of a odd Boy Scouts.
Is that my mom asking that question?
It's actually Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy Mark was my friend. I don't know the full activities. I know there was some Sunday school components to it. There was some religious components. So I'd have to investigate that to know the full, like, what was the program? The Ku Klux Kitties. I will say that this reminded me of something. A big thing in Casper was the infiltration of the Boy Scouts by Klan members. And so there were Klan members, men who were head of these local Boy Scout groups. And so there was a trip there, even without the Ku Klux Kitties, Boy Scouts. Anything else from online? No. Hi, Kathy.
Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening.